how old were you when you started going to church? Or have you always gone to church?
Yeah, my mom was always a church goer.
Okay. So was porn considered bad in general for you, or did you
We weren't
not really
allowed to
care?
we weren't allowed to watch sex scenes or anything like that. We weren't allowed to. We couldn't watch any sex scenes. We had to leave the room if a sex scene had popped up. Something like
Right.
that.
But your parents didn't have to leave. They could watch it.
Yeah, yeah. My mom, they'd all sitting there, and they call us back in. Like
Yeah.
it was cool. But the whole movie, if you, as I sit here and think, the whole entire movie was bad for us to watch. It was just not a good movie.
Right.
It just a good movie.
I remember specifically, have you ever seen Braveheart?
Rain fart, nah.
No, Braveheart with Mel
Nope.
Gibson. Have you seen it?
Okay.
It's a great movie. It's about Scotland becoming free from England. But I remember there were a couple scenes, one where the main character got married and then his wife dies, spoiler alert, and he ends up sleeping with the princess of England. And I remember both scenes where my dad would either he'd just at least have me close my eyes. And I remember always thinking, well, why do you get to watch the naked women? You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we fast forwarding? Why is it not okay for me, but it's okay for you?
Right.
And the answer was always, well, you're young and I'm old. So I don't think I ever asked, but, you can just infer that that's the reason. But yeah. Did you ever ask your parents? Like, did you ever, like, why can't I? Or did you just kind of subconsciously kind of know?
I knew what it was. Yeah, I definitely knew. I knew what was going on. I knew it was grown folk stuff.
Right. Did you ever take a peek while you were supposed to not during the movie parts or what?
Yeah, I was a rugrat, so I found loopholes and little nooks and crannies to get my peeks in. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. About how old do you think you were when you started, like when you'd be like wanting to take a peek?
I remember the movie. If you ever heard of the movie Color Purple, it's old.
I don't think I have.
I don't think kids should be watching it, but it's an old movie, and my parents loved it. Big Mama's House, that's another one. That's a classic. All those movies, man, they had sex scenes in them and violence. The whole movie throughout, it was just comedy mixed in between.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I was exposed to it. I knew what it was, and I honestly, I knew that I shouldn't be watching this, and if I got caught, I knew what the consequences were too. So,
Right.
I made sure I did.
Did you ever get caught by your parents?
Yeah.
How did they treat you? What was the penalty?
It was consequences, man. I got a whooping, a real whooping. With a belt, dude. I could suck.
Man. So I'm trying to think. Would you do it did they catch you doing it while they were watching, or did they catch you doing it like you would try and sneak playing the movie yourself?
Well, actually, when she caught me watching it, because we have to leave the room, and I never chose to come back because once I'm out the room, I had a game, so I had a Game Boy or
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? I was like, well, if I can't watch the movie, I'm gonna play my Game Boy. I'm not coming back downstairs because that's what we have to do. We have to go upstairs and then come back down.
Right.
It was stupid. So when she first I guess when she first called me doing it myself, like peeking for myself, it was me downstairs watching the movie while she was upstairs, and she heard the scene in the bathroom. She was like, "What are you watching? Put the TV on pause." You know what I mean? She got on it. You know what I mean? But it was VHS, and she would never, rewind the tape back when she took it out. She just took it out and laid it down. So I would have to go in and do all that jazz.
Right.
And, when she called me doing this, she was like, "Put that movie on pause, take it out the VCR, and come your butt upstairs," or whatever the case. And yeah, after I came upstairs, she was like, "You ain't supposed to be watching that." And she just chastised me at that point. But the first time, it was, you got a whooping. You ain't supposed to be sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
But she just got on me real quick. That was it.
did that punishment keep you from doing it, or did you just try and get better at sneaking it?
I mean, it was just natural at that point. I knew it was everywhere. I knew like what sex. I knew what a moan was. You know what I mean? I knew what it was. I was smart enough to comprehend. Like, I know what this is. You know, and at that point, I was probably, I want to say 5 or 6. I put it together. You know what I mean? I also seen 2 people doing it at that point. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I put 2 and 2 together, and I knew what it was. I knew it was everywhere. I knew I couldn't avoid it. I knew
That
what it was.
seems that age seems. I've heard like 7 and 9. 12 is usually the average age so far of the people that I've talked to. So it's interesting that you, like, even at that age that you're like, oh, I know what it is. That's very interesting.
Like when my mom wasn't the first person who had it in the background while I was young. My brother was also he watched porn. We lived in the same house. We're 5 years apart. So he was already. I didn't know what he was watching and stuff like that at that age. But I put 2 and 2 together. I was a thinker. I was a loner. You know what I mean? So I thought a lot. I put it together. I'm like, oh, he was watching porn. Oh, he was masturbating. Oh, that's what that smell was over in the corner there. Seriously, like,
Wow,
what it was.
that's crazy. I've had so many stupid times. Luckily, I've never gotten caught in the middle of the act. Even watching I could tolerate, but in the middle of the act of letting one off would obviously be entirely too much to bear. But I've never gotten caught in the middle of even looking, and I just can't even imagine, like, when people say that happens, or I'm just like, gosh, I don't even know how I'd respond. Even like, it'd just be so like, it's like, you know, those dreams when you're like standing in front of your school naked and you've like, I don't know, you ever have like your dream, like I've had dreams of going to school without pants on. It's like the most embarrassing thing. It kind of reminds me of that feeling of like, I'm doing something that, even though it may be natural, feels humiliating to be discovered.
Yeah, when I was young, my mom never really pushed that off. Like, hey, you know, I didn't know what masturbation was. You know, I knew about jacking off.
Right.
Those terms that I was exposed to.
Yeah.
At older, I understood it was masturbation and what ejaculation was and all that jazz. And so it was never, it didn't really cross my mind that it was a bad thing until late, man. Late. Like, even though I went to church wasn't like how it was. I don't want to say how it was for you guys, but how it was when I was at Glad Tidings. It was nothing like that. We didn't have a pastor up there talking to the entire crowd. When we went to church, it was the pastor up there talking to, you know, the other crowd. But it was when you're young, when you're a kid, you don't really understand what that dude is talking about. You're just ready to go home. You're ready to watch the cartoons.
Seriously.
So he was really talking to the grown folks, and the grown folks wouldn't translate. Have you ever seen movies where it's like black community churches with like the grandmas there with the big flashy hats, and ribbons hanging off to the side, and they're all big yellow dresses. They got their fans and they're waving. You know, it was that when I was going to church, and so they wouldn't translate. You know what I mean? And I didn't come across like, hey, you know, you're not supposed to be doing that. No one told me that until late in life. Honestly, I got to maybe 7th grade. I was at King Science Center. That was the school I was going to. Masturbation. Oh, this, that, and the third. Fertilization. All this jazz. I was like, okay. Really? That's when all that sex stuff came.
Right.
Sex education. So
it's very interesting. It makes sense that it would expose just from the subject. What's your viewpoint on it in general? Do you think that it's bad in general? Do you think that it's something that Christianity takes to seriously and should just leave people alone about? Like, what are your thoughts about it?
So it goes two ways for me. When you're following Christ, when you actually have made the promise that you're going to give your life to God, and you go forth and you pursue this journey. Um, there are rules and regulations that you are supposed to follow in that faith. If you knew you weren't going to be serious to begin with, you shouldn't have made that promise. But most people go in fair. I know that's not fair to say. It's kind of. I guess I could have been a little heartless, but when you go in, I feel like, okay. So here's the thing: when Glad Tidings were out there having us talk to people and having them come to Gravity, and I felt like we shouldn't have been so young making that promise. Does that make sense?
Right.
We shouldn't have been. I don't know, man. Most of us were what freshmen when we made that step. You know what I mean? Yeah. Life didn't really hit us. Life didn't hit a lot of people. I mean, I guess it did, but I'm talking about real life, dude. Not high school. That's life.
But for high schoolers, it's real life.
It's real life. You know what I mean? You are pumped with so much. I guess I don't know what to call it, but you want to have sex so bad. You're pumped with so much adrenaline to have sex. Like, you want to do this. You want to ejaculate. Girls have the same energy. You know what I mean? It's strong, dude. It's really, really strong. No matter the age, no matter I don't know. It's really strong. So to make that faith at such a young age, it can go both ways. So I made that promise to follow God at that age. What was I, like 16, 17? Yeah, 17. I knew it was everywhere. I knew I couldn't avoid it. And I knew I had to do whatever it takes to avoid it. And I knew that I had to take these steps in order to make that happen. So I was trying everything in my ability to do that at this age when I wasn't exposed to the actual struggles that it took, the actual effort that it takes to avoid this stuff. It's unavoidable. That's how what I eventually came out with, that I can't control this. So yeah, man, making that, it can go both ways. So once you make that step, you have to be sure about it. You got to be sure, and you have to be 100% for it. When you made that, promise at such a young age, you didn't really develop that consciousness, like, oh, this is what it's really gonna take. These are the real struggles. This you have to go through.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been hearing recently is just because of how undeveloped our brains are at that age, you can't even expect much of, like, so there's this writing program that I've been doing, and it focuses on writing about your past, your present, and what you would hope for your future. And they were talking about how it's not really useful to have a high schooler do this program because their brains can't conceptualize 5-10 years in the future. Like, you might be able to get them to conceptualize 6 months, but it's pushing it. And so when you have someone in high school say, are you going to make a lifelong decision to follow Jesus, and all of the consequences and self-control that you might need to have, you've got to think of it right now, and you've got to make the decision right here that you're going to do it for the rest of your life. And we celebrate it as if it's a big victory. Like, oh my gosh, my teenage son, he's made the best decision of his life. It's just like, yeah, but He's 15. You can't, in 3 minutes, he could change his mind. Like, so
and then, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, I think that even for me, like I know you and I talked about this early on, but I have so much skepticism for what I've experienced in my Christian faith. And one of the big reasons I'm skeptical of it is because the first experience that I had was when I was 15. Like, how much of your experience can you really trust when you're not even halfway through high school? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still like, because what happened was I didn't really care about people much. You know, I was really secluded. I didn't have that many friends. I wanted people to think that I knew people knew I wasn't a Christian, but I didn't want people to think that I was a not Christian either. You know, I was kind of in that, I was fine with the neutral, but I wanted people to think that I was remotely good.
Yeah.
So my dad forced me to go on a missions trip. He asked, "Hey, do you want to go on a missions trip to Colombia with me?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, you're going." so I said, "Thanks for the option." I remember thinking that too. It's just like, why'd you ask me if I want to go if you're just going to make me? But what happened was, I mean, first I hated every moment of it. But on the third night, they were praying for like 364 hours. I don't know how you can fit 364 hours into 24 hours in a day, but Christians can make it happen when they pray and they pray and they pray, and it just never stops. So not literally, it felt like a prayer service that just would never end. I came down and I had to pretend to be praying and worshiping with them. Then we finally circled around, and I literally uttered words that I knew were complete heresy, like, "God, please don't let the ostriches get lost in Africa. Please don't let the watermelon," just saying words to look like I was praying under my breath.
Right.
And so Pastor Jesse was just like, "Before we finish, there's one more thing I want to pray for." And I knew exactly what he wanted to pray for. I was like, oh my gosh, if he calls me to the center of this circle, I'm going to murder someone. And he calls me to the center of the circle, and he says, you know, "Gino, if you would just let him, God would, if you would just let him, God would give you an influence that you couldn't even imagine, and a relationship with him that would make people jealous." And I remember it hit me hard. Like, I mean, I don't know if have you ever had any moments where Pastor Jesse looks you directly in the eyes? It's the most like it's like he's looking into your soul. But yeah, he's just one of those people, when he looks at you, it just hits you. And I remember it hitting me really hard, and everyone prayed for me. And whatever the experience was, it was all of the anxiety and upsetness that I had disappeared. I started to cry, and I felt peace. Like, peace is the best word I can put to it. And I remember thinking, well, whatever this is, I want it. Like, this is great. You know, it was the first time that I had experienced something that is what they said it was God. And so but I can't explain what happened, but I'm so skeptical just because this is like, how much can you trust of your perspective when you're 15? Like, there's so many things that I didn't know. That it could be psychological, for the fact that I was so isolated as a 15-year-old that when people put their hands on me and showed that they cared for me, maybe that made such a psychological impact on me that I cried and it felt peaceful. I mean, like, I'm trying to rationalize it, of course, but it's so difficult to. I mean, point being, I agree with you that it's very hard to ask us as children to make these commitments and to not do these terrible things and to understand the consequences, because we are mentally incapable of actually doing that.
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on the practice as well. So when I say you're young, we're young. We're too young to kind of make that. It depends on the practice. It really does. Christianity, maybe even a religion as a whole, as a practice, to really start it off so young for most people. I don't know. For some kids, I guess maybe it's a challenge. It's more of a challenge to do it at such a young age. Now I've seen like 7 year olds who's like kickboxers. You know what I mean? They're just this is on Facebook. You know what I mean? They're just wailing
Right.
on some. They're practicing. They're sparring with someone, but they're like 6, 7, 8 years old. I've seen football players, all types, man. But they're kids. I've seen kids using guns, real guns, learning what a round is, learning what a clip is, learning what all this
Right.
jazz is, and at a young age. So it depends on the practice for sure, and it also depends on the teacher. Pastors
Right.
is just as much as a teacher as anyone else. Your youth leader, they were just as much as teachers as anyone else. They were also human beings with struggles and stuff like that. So it definitely depends on all that, man. You got to put all that into perspective. Were you exposed uh, around an environment where you chose to be teachable? Did you mentally make that decision, like, hey, I want to learn this. I want to understand this. Do the teachers have patience? You got to, man. It's so many factors.
Yeah.
Not to say Pastor Jesse, Bobby, Drew Milliken. Not to say that they didn't match any of those characteristics. Those are some of my favorite. That's why I named them off. They're great people, truly great people. But as far as being a pastor, that's also a struggle. That's also a path you have to take. You know what I mean? That they have to walk a certain path as well while they're trying to teach someone else. So it's
Right. Right. One of the things that you mentioned, like at least for the examples that you mentioned, like the kids who are playing football or can do jujitsu or doing a gun, all of those are motor skills, and you can teach children motor skills. But the hard part is you can't really teach them the ability to abstractly think and to think forwardly into consequences for the future. Those are things that happen as your brain actually develops. Like I would imagine your prefrontal cortex grows, the things that actually give you the cognitive ability to do so aren't there. So I can teach you to do things with your physical body, but I can't give you capacities that your body just hasn't developed yet.
what I felt like the what I felt like when we were younger going to church. I felt like the environment we were exposed to really pushed. Um, I guess they pushed a lot of physical. They pushed physical strength with the what do they call it? The fasting. That took a lot of strength for me, man. I wasn't eating
Right.
at school. That took a lot of strength. I wasn't eating breakfast or nothing. I was just drinking water, which I learned about. I learned a lot that water is good for you. It hydrates you, all this stuff. So they pushed a lot of emotional forces were pushed in the church, inside of the church. And I didn't really have a problem with it. It was overwhelming. It was a lot. You couldn't really, and then after I kind of left, I kind of was questioning, was that real? Did they really mean what they, this, that? I was just questioning just everyone. Um, I was 18, 19 at this point, so I was emotional. um, Hanging with people, doing all this jazz, and it's emotional. I was around people who I didn't understand. I was questioning life, like, hey, did I understand the people before this life or this chapter? So I just had to really put two and two together. But yeah.
So I'm trying to. There was something that you said before asking people besides their age that kind of stuck out to me. It was, I'm drawing a blank. It's fine. I'm sure if it comes back, um, I'll try and touch base on it. But So I asked if you felt like the church took it too seriously. And I remember now. You said it was that, if you join the club, there's rules that you need to stick with. And I can agree with that. If you join Taekwondo, I shouldn't even reference Taekwondo because I have no understanding of Taekwondo. But if you join Taekwondo, there are rules and ethics that you have to live by if you're going to be part of the Taekwondo team. And that, if you want to play football, if you want to play chess, you have to play the rules of chess. You don't get to join the chess club and play checkers, so I get that. I think that's a good point that I wish people would take more seriously. It does boggle my mind with this modernization of Christianity that seems to be coming around, where people will say, hey, I'm openly gay, but I'm Christian. And I just find that oxymoronical because there's explicit words in the Bible stating that that's not okay. Now, whether or not I agree with the fact that those words are in the Bible, that's not the point. But it's kind of like trying to join that chess club and trying to play checkers. Like, I don't understand how people can say, I'm going to live this life that isn't matching up to the ideals of this religion, but I'm still going to say I'm a part of that religion. So
yeah, I don't think it's it all depends. Again, like I told you, there's several factors that we didn't factor in when we had asked the original question. But upbringing, man, I think upbringing is the key. When you're young and what you're exposed to and how it will carry out throughout your life, for sure. That is definitely the cornerstone of it. When we first started the interview, you had asked things about my childhood, and that's kind of why I got deep into it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, so that's why I kind of got deep into it. So yeah, it's definitely the cornerstone of how your life is going to play out. So what you're exposed to, man, it at that point, when you're growing up, you will develop morals and principles of your own to abide by, like naturally. Inevitably, you're gonna abide by these rules and these laws, pretty much, of your own. So yeah, it could be good, it could be bad, but you have to be a specific person to call it, bad.
Right. Have you found that it's that you, like, I guess if you could go back and make the decision to erase or keep things the same, would you wish that you had never seen anything like porn, or would you, do you think that it's been in some way beneficial or non-hurtful to you?
It has been very hurtful to me, man. It has been very hurtful to me because I don't think people understand the psychological effects it has. It's damaging over time, for real. It definitely f's up your mind, man. So what it does is, over time, you will lose sensitivity towards women, especially if you're watching, obviously, guy on girl or girl on girl, whatever the case. Really, you'll lose sensitivity towards. For me, maybe, I don't know about anybody else. Like I said, it takes a certain individual, but for me, you will lose. You'll lose like emotion towards that other sex, for sure. So yeah, it is damaging because you okay, obviously you can't avoid male, female wherever you go. They're there. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too deep into it.
I don't know. I mean, it's just I overall I agree. I've found the more that I look at it, the less I have the ability to connect with my wife, the less I desire to connect with my wife. And even before I was married, it definitely, like, my proneness to check out another girl, even while I was dating, was much higher the more I looked at porn. So to say that it was in any way, oh, that's just up to me and I should be able to control that, it's like, sure. But to say that it's helpful, At least in my experience, it has not. It's definitely, I mean, I could agree with that in my experience.
So yeah, man. So it also affects you emotionally, man. It affects you physically. You don't want to do it too much. You don't want to be running on empty, bro. Before you go to work. I don't know. You don't want to do it too much, especially if you're masturbating. You don't want to do that too much.
Right.
That'll just jack you up. But
yeah, no pun intended.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. So I told you my little secret. So I'm definitely affected by this point, obviously, right. And you can imagine the everyday life. I don't want to say, man. I don't want to say nothing too crazy, but it is a problem over time for sure.
Yeah,
it's definitely an issue.
Yeah, what do you think of the idea that if both of them agree to watching it together, that it could be something helpful? Do you think that is just being naive, or do you think that that's possible? I've had someone actually, after I started this podcast, I was messaged directly saying that they felt that I was chastising myself, and they felt bad for me because they felt that I was essentially publicly whipping myself to feel good in front of all of the Christians. And I was just like, that's not what's going on. I actually have had negative impacts of this, but they had said that in their relationships they had used pornography together as a way to keep their relationship alive. Now I was like, well, that's interesting. I definitely couldn't see that working in my relationship, but I think that that's an interesting thing. He's not the first person I've heard it from, but what do you think? Do you think that could remotely be beneficial in the long term?
It'll definitely spark some kinky ideas, maybe.
Fair enough.
But other than that, man, it depends on how you take it. If you're just gonna sit down and just watch a porn, that's weird. What do you gotta do? Watch 2 minutes and then start having sex? I mean, what is the objective there?
Yeah. I think that is partly what it is. I think it's to get those kinky ideas out. Like, oh my gosh, isn't this crazy? You're probably watching something and then trying that thing that you're watching, realistically. But
yeah,
I don't know. I have my skepticism towards the long-term benefits of something like that. It sounds super fiery at first. Like even as a guy, I would be. It sounds like, oh, that'd be fantastic. But I am very skeptical of its benefits long term.
Do you know not trying to interview you, but do you know
Oh, am I? Oh, that's funny. I just realized you couldn't see me. There you go.
No, you're fine. Did you know the ergonomics of porn, like the porn industry?
What do you mean by the ergonomics? I'm actually naive to the meaning of that word.
So like the physical aspects of it, basically. No. So a lot of those actors aren't really moaning. One, that's number one. Number two, for those girls to be getting pounded like that, they lose sensitivity. The vagina is so sensitive, dude. It's so sensitive. They lose sensitivity over time. They aren't, first of all, like it may be good for while they're young, but as they get older and keep progressing in the porn industry, that tends to fade. Sex for them tends to fade. The arousal of it tends to fade. Everything about sex seems to fade for a woman, male and female.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. It's like if all you do is eat Hershey bars, it's probably not going to taste as good as if you had a Hershey bar like once a year.
Right.
It makes sense. Where did you hear that? Like, I guess
because it's really been an issue for me. So I've really been looking for outlets to relieve myself of that stronghold or vice, whatever you want to call it, struggle.
Vice is a good word.
Yeah. Because it's really been a struggle for me. Like I told you, it's not good for you.
Yeah.
I have problems in the outside world where pornography has taken an effect on just my day to day. You know, even the way I conversate.
Right.
You know, so I've been looking for ways to change that, and even to this day, 26 years of age, I'm still looking for ways.
So when you say you're looking for different outlets, like, has that just caused you to look up the research of it, or like, what do you mean?
Research of it, the healthy practices, for sure. I've gotten into so much stuff just to keep my mind away from it. To put that whole story in a nutshell, I'm a great starter. I can start something, man. I'm good at starting. I'm not very good at maintaining. I don't want to say finishing. I can finish strong, but maintaining is my issue.
So are you saying that looking up information about it was really easy to start, but not, like, the epiphany wasn't, knowing that information wasn't good enough to keep you?
It wasn't good enough. Yeah. The logic that I put together and the stuff I was reading, the practices that they were saying, try this, it was never enough. I even got into the zodiacs. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm a Scorpio. I have this high sex energy, this high sex drive, this high, you know what I mean?
I hate astrology. It's so
you know
stupid.
what I mean? It's obnoxious, dude. It's obnoxious. And that was one of the paths that I took. I was into that for a while, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. You know, I can do this, that, and the third. But I was walking through that year so arrogantly. I'm like, oh, so that's what it is. I have a high sex drive. That's all it is.
So has there been anything that has penetrated? That's a bad word to use, but has there been any idea, concept, or practice that has lasted beyond the initial epiphany, like something that has helped you stay away for long periods of time?
Yeah. My brother, one of my good friends, he's family now. He told me, man, he wanted me to I guess be more busy. You know, I wasn't busy enough to him. And what he told me, I was really looking for an outlet in another department of my life. And he gave me some great advice. He was like, keep a consistent flow of information. Just make sure you're always learning. Make sure you're always taking in something. That hurt. Make sure you're always taking in information and never, never being distracted. Because once you get distracted, then your mind goes into another area. Then you automatically seek comfort.
Right.
Just like that. So
I have found that. So I agree, but there's times where the need for pornography becomes so overwhelming that I can't even keep my mind busy. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to read, and then it's just like I can't even read, and like I can't even watch YouTube or watch a lecture. I love watching lectures and debates. In the last week, I've probably watched more than 24 hours of debates. This week has just, for some reason, I've just had this giant urge. I look at my screen time report and it's like 5 hours a day watching debates on YouTube.
I get that same notification, dude. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on Twitter that much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So
it's embarrassing.
But on the days that I'm most tempted, even if what I am doing is actually intriguing, the desire for porn tends to be even stronger than the intrigue. So that is something that I am currently trying to figure out. How can I supersede something even when the things that I enjoy doing the most don't seem to satisfy? So that's very difficult. So you said keeping busy has been helpful. Has there been anything else that's helped you out?
That hasn't even really helped, man. I got my own place now, so it's just me. It's my own comfort zone. It's my own. Everything is me, you know. Because before I had a roommate, we were roommating.
It's a big step. I'm sure it's great to have your own place.
It is nice. It's nice. Yeah. What I was afraid of, because I knew, man. I told you, I think, and I think far ahead. and I knew what it was gonna be like when I moved in here. Um, all the alone time, no one to talk to because we need that social interaction.
Right.
I feel like that's very healthy, just in a human's life, period. But there's no one around, and you're just in your own world. Um, that temptations creep that it creeps up all the time.
Right. So you said your brother who was older than you, 5 years older, right?
Oh no, this is not my blood brother. This is
Okay.
someone who I met outside of.
Okay, gotcha. So did you go to him and let him know that you were actively trying to stop pornography? Like,
No. So I went to him. I seen him putting in the steps, putting in the work in order to get himself into a new position. Like, I watched him do that, and it was so encouraging. So I seen his passion. And I seen that he was really going for it. And he's still doing it to this day. He was just passionate about what he was doing. He was trying to learn. Wow, what was it? He's a technician now, but he was learning all types of different stuff, man. He was just going hard at it, and it really helped me out. So I went to him under the notion that he can help me get to his level of his level of thinking, maybe, or even what is the word? His level of understanding, man. He was just he had this fire burning, and I want to know how to get mine lit. In a nutshell. And he told me, man, if you're struggling with anything, just keep busy, keep focused. Do something that's gonna help you out in the long run. Don't start a habit that's gonna screw you up in the end. Start something that's gonna help you out in the end. And he just said keep a consistent flow of information. If you're whatever you're doing, just stay focused on that task, and hopefully something positive comes out of it. But don't start a bad habit. So I was looking for somebody for some motivation. Pretty much, I had nobody to talk to, and he was kind of just available, and I seen that he was a good person to take information from when he talked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot of people who talk, man, and it goes in one ear and out the other. He's not one of them people.
Right. So. I've been really wrestling with trying to, like, something that I've always kind of, I guess, always been conscious of is people's listening. And I'm trying to get better at that. Like, if I'm saying something and no one's listening, or I'm saying something and it makes no impact on them whatsoever, why say anything? And I have really been wrestling with that, more so learning how to listen. Like, I've been really trying to work on that, but I don't know even where I'm going with that. You just hear when you said that he was someone who words aren't just coming out from nothing, like he actually means what he said. It's something that I've been trying to think about a lot lately. So.
Yeah, no, I understand. So when you go to listen to someone, who you don't really, I guess, have a connection with, that's an easy way to put it. I don't know. It's a comfort thing. When you introduced me to Sam Harris, I knew when he started talking, I'm like, okay, this guy, he may have some useful information for some reason. I was comfortable.
Isn't the way he talks the most beautiful thing you've ever heard in your life?
It's comforting, man. It makes you want to hear the rest.
I know. It was 2 hours long, and I was just like, I couldn't pause it. He's so pleasant to listen to.
Dude.
I find it amazing. What I wonder is his words are so, honestly perfect. I was trying to wonder, is he reading his script, or is he just talking, is he just freestyling this 2 hour conversation? Because it felt so easy to track that it made no sense that there was no script, but it felt so natural that it didn't feel like it was a script either. So it was every time I listen to him, I'm constantly just like, how did you say that so beautifully? So I really have enjoyed listening to him.
Yeah, he's a good pot. He's a good person to listen to.
Right. He's been one of the people that I have been listening to debates with in this last week. He's quite fun. So I guess, I mean, do you have any questions for me, like on the subject at all? Like, I know I didn't ask you to come prepared. I'm just kind of drawing a blank on questions for you. I think you've hit some really good points. And
how much supervision was around when you were young? Were you always being supervised? Like, were there always adults around you? Was there always someone there? You know what I mean?
Overall, yes. I think I shared a couple episodes ago with my brother-in-law. I always celebrated when my dad went out of town. My dad tended to be the micromanager. He was the one who was more on top of everything. My mom was definitely more free flow with allowing us to be alone and do what we wanted. But my dad was not. He didn't let us lock our doors. He didn't allow us to have Wi-Fi on our computers. Wi-Fi being on your computers was like a specialty at the time. Now it's just built into your computers, but so that was one thing I always celebrated, was when he was out of town. I took advantage to get into my mischief, but I did also try to take advantage of whenever my parents left the computer unlocked and they left me to babysit, I'd take advantage of it. So essentially I was supervised to the point where it was almost impossible to look at it when I was about 15, 16. But by the time, gosh, I know when I got my first iPhone, that probably was definitely where it exploded the most.
Did you have Wi-Fi in the house?
We at the time, realistically, no. And if we did, it was only on a computer that my parents could log on to. So I would always have to get permission for them to log on. And if I was logged on with their permission, that meant that they were home. And if they weren't home, they almost always logged off. So I had to, it was very far and few between. But once I started to get my own devices, I think probably when I got Wi-Fi, it would have been when probably the Xbox One came out and I got Wi-Fi on my first system. Mm-hmm. That might have been before I got my first iPhone. Maybe it wasn't. I got a first iPhone first, but yeah, I think the iPhone really was what opened the doors for me to have privacy and not need to sneak around as much, because it was just my phone. So
what the heck? Okay. Okay, so you had to get permission after a while, and then after a while, you just had your own Wi-Fi, I guess? Like, you had a connection?
Right. Once I got my own device. I actually used to sneak out. I took advantage of the fact that whenever I was at someone else's house, like when I was out at a friend's house doing a sleepover, I'd wait for my friends to fall asleep and I'd get on their computers. So, what about you?
So no, I was getting to that. So no, I never had internet connection. It got to a point, I was about 16, 17, when it got really bad. You know, I was just kind of doing it every night. Right. That was the deal.
Why only every night? Why not like 5? Once a night is too few times.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding.
You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I never had internet connection. So I had to do it the weird way. I had to go and hop in the Wi-Fi. I had to hop in the Wi-Fi and have to download videos. I found a way to download videos. And I got to understand storage and all that jazz. And I used a lot of my storage for music and videos, but for mostly it was filled with videos. Barely any pictures, just videos. Right. At that age, in music. So I had to do it that way. I had to find Wi-Fi, man, and it was a struggle for me. You know, I couldn't just So at 16, 17, I had lost the ability to picture a girl in my mind and all. I had lost that imagination. I'm like, okay, that ain't strong enough.
Right.
That isn't what I need. I need a video. I need somebody in front of me.
Right.
Something in front of me. So I went to go download videos, and after I found out how to do that, that's when I really realized how much of a stronghold this stuff has on me in my life. Especially when I was in glad tidings with those videos on my phone.
Right.
Or I was in church. You can cut that part out, but I was in church with those videos.
Realistically, I'll try and timestamp it. 103:29. I might forget, but I'm going to do my best.
I can't be fake, Gino. I'm gonna give you the real deal, man.
Right. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with it. It's really whatever you're comfortable with. Like I said, I told you that I had a friend of mine that I was in the room where he showed me how it works. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, the purpose, I mean, the reason I want to have this conversation is it's hard to have this conversation just in general. And so, just if someone can listen to this and see two friends talking about it in a non-heavy way, even though clearly, like, I think it's kind of obvious that it's heavy for both of us.
Yeah.
I hope that it can be beneficial just for someone to maybe get enough guts to talk to a friend of theirs as well. Like, that's the whole purpose of this. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I agree. I don't know if you listened to this, but I'll go one step further to show how crazy stupid I was. I was in the sound booth at the church playing financial peace classes on Thursday nights and looking at porn in the sound booth. And Zach Ford was, he told me a couple months, it might have been even a year later. He was just like, because they got a Mac, and I was just like, oh, why'd you get a Mac? And he said, some idiot was watching porn in the sound booth, and so it crashed. And I was just like, that's crazy. Who would watch porn in the sound booth? So, I completely understand how insanely just it wraps around your mind to the point where it makes absolute you doing something that you would never wish on anyone, that you would absolutely think was gross if anyone else told you they did it.
Yeah.
But for some reason, you do it yourself. And that is the worst. I think that's the most humiliating part about it is if I had, maybe if it wasn't a friend, but if someone, okay, I guess I'll put it in this way. If a friend of mine was telling me a story about some idiot who crashed the church's computer because he was looking at porn while being in the sound booth, I would be disgusted by the idea of that person. I'd be like, wow, really? That is one miserable idiot. He's got problems. If my friend told me, the level of judgment would obviously go less. But then when it's on me and it's me that does it, it's like, that's who I am. That's what I'm capable of. That's the level of, that's the level I've gone to.
Yeah. And, with that, that's with that mindset, like that's where your mind has gone to that point. At that point, you don't think like, oh, this won't affect my outside life. This won't affect anyone around me. I don't know if you see the effects of it, but man, some people can't even look me in my eye. Some people can't sit there and talk to me for a long time. And I sometimes have this subconscious, like, something's telling me deep in the back of my head, like, yo, they know you've been looking at, crazy shit, to get your, to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's a psychological thing, man.
Right.
But porn really messes people up. It makes you think something that isn't even real.
Yeah. That's something that I think is so crucial in the aspect of, you maybe what you're thinking, maybe they aren't looking at you for completely different reasons. But the problem is that voice that's telling you that all of this crap that's wrong with you, regardless of if that voice is an accurate representation of who you are, if you could just not have that voice nagging you, the amount of freedom that you could have in your life would be just incredible. You know what I mean? Like to not have to think, oh my gosh, I'm a piece of crap. They think I'm a piece of crap. And like, if you could just have that voice gone, not even counting all of the benefits that you could get from not having porn, but if you could just get rid of that, the benefits would just already be worth it.
Okay. So to touch on that, when that voice is gone, when that voice is completely diminished, you now have replaced an issue, or you have exterminated or extinguished that issue and replaced it with another one, like a subconscious one. You don't even know. When that voice is gone, though, you no longer have, because that is your brain telling you. It's like your accountability partner. It's like your subconscious. You're not supposed to really silence that. That's not supposed to be silenced.
Right. No, so I'm not saying silencing it. I'm saying that when the thing that causes you to think that you're miserable is no longer acted on, like when I'm no longer looking at porn, that nagging voice stops nagging me. And like it no longer has a reason to tell me I'm a piece of crap because by definition I'm no longer a piece of crap. And so like that alone is a good enough reason for me to want to get away from porn. I have
a good story.
Go ahead.
It is happening in my day-to-day life every single day at work, right? I wear a helmet with earplugs in, right? When I am in the midst of working, I'm in a production plant. I'm on the line pulling meat. When I'm working, I have gloves on. My ears itch. I can't scratch the inside of my ear. I have to learn, or I still have to learn. I'm still learning to be resilient to that itch, that scratch. I can't do nothing about it. I have to. In my mind, I use this term is called thug it out. I have to thug it out. I have to keep going. I can't stop to scratch this itch.
Right.
And I'm learning how to be more, I guess more, what is the word I'm looking for? It's a certain word, but I'm learning how to be resilient towards that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That itch, that scratch, that nerve, that want, that craving. Same thing with sugar. I'm learning how to get rid of that as well.
Right. Good luck with that one.
You know, that's a really hard one. But it's all these struggles that we have to learn to be resilient to. And I think the only practice to be resilient to any of these, because what they really are, they're comfort zones, and humans crave it so freaking much, especially when things go bad. But when you learn to be resilient towards basically, man, anything, you become a whole nother person, dude. Have you ever watched any martial fighting movies or any?
I've seen Warrior. I love that movie. Rocky. Rocky's an obvious one, but
anything like that. Any of those. In those movies, they teach resilience. They teach how you have to maintain. You have to be diligent. I guess, work a little easier, but I don't know. They teach you these things in those movies. They teach you how to be resilient with your inner self, dude.
Right.
What was the movie I was thinking of? Frick, I brain fart. But these movies teach you these lessons, how to be, how to fight these urges, and that's the only way you can get rid of it, man. Is you really gotta practice it every day, just like religion, just like anything. You really gotta practice this thing every day. And I think humans sometimes have this crazy ability to think that things are gonna change in a month or 2 or 3, 4, 5 years. Do you know how long it takes to forget something? Like, for your mind to forget a memory, it takes a very long time. You may have forgotten it for 5 years, 10 years, but for that thought to be completely gone, takes forever, dude. I think it's like 20 years.
Yeah. And the thing that's crazy is pretty much what I've heard is the mechanism that starts habits that doesn't get destroyed. What happens is you build new mechanisms to override that. So, if you started cocaine and all you did was, and you only did cocaine whenever you had a slice of cheese pizza, you could have been free from cocaine for 20 years, but if you have a slice of cheese pizza, the first thing you're going to think about 20 years later is cocaine. It's incredible. So like the mechanisms that surround it, like the things that you did that were the precursor to whatever action you're trying to get rid of, the bad habit. I used to eat, like, I mean, if it's about eating sugar, I used to eat sugar whenever I was stressed. Well, when stress comes, guess what? The thought of sugar comes.
Yes.
So it's crazy. So like that circuit just gets enhanced and built, and the only way around it is to build an overriding circuit that surpasses that, which is quite incredible, but quite annoying at the same time.
So it's all about how you replace that habit, dude. If you want to get rid of a bad habit, you have to replace it. You have to replace it with something, and it has to be something good. It has to be a good habit, something that's going to maintain that habit. So
yeah,
I also think it's a perspective thing. You know, if you get away. Imagine if you were traveling all the time. Would you have time to masturbate? I'm pretty sure you wouldn't, but you would find
There'd be
time.
bathroom breaks.
Yeah, you'd find time. That's when like
you find out how desperate you are for it when there's zero time, and you still find out where to make time for it.
Yeah. Gino, I asked you a question earlier. I actually was like about your upbringing. I think. You know, what you experience when you grow up, it kind of shapes and put together your morals and your principles.
Right.
Especially what you understand. So first off, you don't need pornography. Women do anything if you have the right materials, for sure. Especially the women you want, you know. First of all, the woman you're probably watching on your screen, probably she doesn't even have a fucking soul, dude. Like,
right?
She doesn't have.
Yeah.
You know what
and
I
mean, it obviously comes across harsh to say something like that, but if you really think about the likelihood that this person has a healthy perspective on relationships, that they probably didn't come from an abusive or sexually abusive relationship, like the statistically speaking, of course, the majority of them have come from that. You know, and I'm sure there's.
Have you ever heard of the porn star Riley Reid?
I have. Yeah,
Caucasian. She's a Caucasian. Yep. Okay, she's attractive, right? She has a documentary. It's on YouTube. It's free to watch. But she actually explains, and because I told you, man, this has been a problem with me for years, and I've been looking for other people's perspectives. And I've watched porn stars talk. Like, some porn stars have podcasts. Not like they're talking about real life. They're not talking about porn. They're talking about real life. You know what they go through. And she's one of them who comes to mind. Her family completely rejected her, man. Like, she has no one. Yeah. She has no one.
Because of the porn?
Because of porn.
Right. And I'm sure that doesn't help either, because there was probably a million reasons why she felt that porn was a viable reason to make money. And then on top of that, she loses her family. Yeah. What do you think? That person is a healthy person? I highly doubt it.
Her mind is screwed, man. She knows she broke down in the video. Right. Like, she broke. I felt her pain. Like, she couldn't take it. She was talking about it so much, and it got so real for her to express this on camera that she just broke down, man.
It's very hard to think of that. Especially, like, you know, someone told me, I can't remember who it was, but it's just like most of those women aren't in a good spot.
No.
And so, but it's hard to even think of that, or like, I mean, I'll just be frank, to care when, you know, I'm just, all I want is to get my off.
You're making 8K a video.
Yeah. I mean, it's good money. Yeah.
It's
So,
good. It's easy
but
money.
it's hard for me as the guy, or I want to be a good person and not support this thing. But when
Yeah.
when I have the urge, it's very hard to be like, oh, I shouldn't do this because it's really harmful to the women. That it's really difficult to be able to take that moral value and put that before your addiction.
Well, your moral, no, because your morals and your addictions are tied for sure. Because when you go and commit, first of all, when you have a moral, that's a commitment. That is a personal, mental, physical commitment that you have made to yourself. Inevitably, somewhere, somehow, you made that. That is your moral code.
Mm-hmm.
That is your coding. No one has changed that. No one has modified that. You did that yourself. Because what you see through your eyes, which is your lens, whatever you see, you put two and two together and you come to a conclusion. If that conclusion is ever tampered with, you will debate that and you will argue that.
Right. Don't you think that you can have morals that you just don't live up to? Or do you think that I should use a different word? Like I could say ideals.
Yeah. Because
but like my morals, like I don't want women to be treated poorly. But if I have to make the decision in that given moment of my use of pornography, most of the time, even if I have that in the back of my mind, I'm like, I can justify it being like, well, it's not me who filmed the video, or the video is already up there, or, you can rationalize all of the reasons why what I'm doing isn't really the reason that she's in pain.
Right. So what you're doing at that point, you're trying to rationalize with your inner self. You can't rationalize with your inner thoughts, because what the hell are you going to do? That is you. That is your inner thoughts telling you. Obviously, you're going against it. You're going against your own own morals, and you're telling yourself no. At the same time, you're telling yourself yes.
Right. Yeah.
What are you gonna do? So you give in. You give in, and that's where resilience come in at. You cannot give in. You have to be resilient to your inner self. That's why whenever I talk about inner self, I say energy, because that's what. Yeah. That's my energy telling me, yo, man, this ain't cool. This ain't,
It's quite interesting how we have that. I've been writing a document, like just a journaling experiment of mine. And I titled it Conversations with My Shadow and My Daemon.
Your daemon. Yeah, that's a good word. Daemon.
So yeah, it's a Socrates, before he died, he told everyone that, he has a daemon, a voice inside of his head that tells him what he should and shouldn't do. And he said the thing that makes him different is that he always does what that daemon says. And I'm like, man, can you imagine if every single time you felt I shouldn't do this and you don't do it, or every time you felt I should do this and you actually act upon that? You know how I just can't even imagine how much, I don't want to say development, but like the strength that you would have as a person to be able to live up to that would be incredible.
Gino.
Yeah.
A lot of people live with that strength every day. You don't see that? Do you know how people become addicts? They say F that voice.
No. Right.
After a while, they'll start talking to that voice. And then that's when schizophrenia will develop.
Well, no. So the daemon is essentially what you could say is your conscience.
Yeah,
so every time you get the thought, I shouldn't do this, if you never did what you thought you shouldn't do, and if you only did what you thought what you should do, I don't think a lot of people live that way.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, but a lot of people ignore that thought, because what you're getting at is that angel and that devil, right?
Right.
Those are the daemons you're referring to.
Right. Yeah. And what I'm saying is, can you imagine if you only listened to the angel and you always said, get the F away to the demon? Can you imagine what your life would look like in 10 years if you did that? Like, it'd be like, that'd be incredible. Like, there's no answering to how much your life could improve if you did what you knew you should do and you didn't do what you knew you shouldn't do all the time.
That's a whole nother conversation, because I see people who level up, pretty fast. I kind of feel like they're spiritually led. That's another conversation, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's some people who are naturally connected to the harmonies of life.
Yeah,
I do.
I think that with those people, the amount of discipline that they have to have is incredible. You know what I mean? Like when you see someone who, I think Pastor Walt was a good example of that for me. I always respected him. It just felt that he had the ability to discipline himself to do things even if he didn't want to.
Pastor Walt agrees. Yeah, he had one of those voices as well. Same as Sam Harris.
Yeah. Just easy to listen to.
I can hear it now, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am going to wrap up. I've got a friend of mine who needs to get, have been having some hard times, and I told him I'd be wrapping up around 4. So, do you mind if I start to close things down for this?
That's cool.
All right. Thanks for having this conversation. I thank everyone for doing it, but I really do mean it. It's not an easy conversation, obviously. And so I just want to say thank you for saying some of the things that you said. Like, you exposed some of the things about growing up, and, that's all. I cannot give you enough credit for how much even that shows good character. So thank you for doing this,
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem.